Potter profile on Amelia Bones, a Cast a Spell series. We do not know much about Amelia's childhood, apart from she attended Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and it is believed she was sorted into Hufflepuff like her niece, Susan Bones. During the First Wizarding War, the Bones family were targets of the Death Eaters. Both her mother and father were murdered by Lord Voldemort himself. Her brother, Edgar, who was a member of the Order of the Phoenix, was also killed by Death Eaters alongside his wife and children. When she graduated from Hogwarts, Amelia started working for the Ministry of Magic. At first, she worked in a minor clerical position. She was then given the name Madam Bones and would later on be promoted to head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, which included a seat on the Wizengamot. In 1995, Amelia sat on the Wizengamot during the Harry Potter disciplinary hearing. The hearing was supposed to take place in her office, but was moved to Courtroom 10, located in the depths of the Ministry. Amelia was sat on the bench alongside Minister for Magic Cornelius Fudge and Dolores Umbridge. Cornelius Fudge treated Harry as if he was guilty straight away, but Amelia still managed to keep the hearing on an unbiased track. When Dumbledore told the court Harry had a witness, Amelia confirmed that the accused has the right to provide witnesses and evidence to defend themselves. When Arabella Figg gave her testimony, Amelia was impressed that Harry could produce a Patronus. Amelia also seemed to believe Arabella's story.
"They went for the boys,"
said Mrs. Figg, her voice stronger and more confident now, the pink flush ebbing away from her face.
"One of them had fallen. The other was backing away, trying to repel the Dementor. It was Harry. He tried twice and produced a silver vapor. On the third attempt, he produced a Patronus, which charged down the first Dementor, and then, with his encouragement, chased away the second from his cousin. And that was what happened."
Mrs. Figg finished, somewhat lamely. Madame Bones looked down at Mrs. Figg in silence. Fudge was not looking at her at all, but fidgeting with his papers. Finally, he raised his eyes and said, rather aggressively,
"That's what you saw, is it?"
"That was what happened,"
Mrs. Figg repeated.
"Very well,"
said Fudge.
"You may go."
Mrs. Figg cast a frightened look from Fudge to Dumbledore, then got up and shuffled off towards the door again. Harry heard it thud shut behind her.
"Not a very convincing witness,"
said Fudge loftily.
"Oh, I don't know,"
said Madame Bones in her booming voice.
"She certainly described the effects of a Dementor attack very accurately, and I can't imagine why she would say they were there if they weren't."
After Mrs. Figg had spoken, it was time for the verdict.
"Those in favour of clearing all charges?"
said Madame Bones's booming voice. Harry's head jerked upward. There were hands in the air, many of them, more than half. Breathing very fast, he tried to count, but before he could finish, Madame Bones had said,
"And those in favour of conviction?"
Fudge raised his hand. So did half a dozen others, including the witch on the right, and the heavily moustached wizard, and the frizzy-haired witch in the second row. Fudge glanced around at them all, looking as though there was something large stuck in his throat, then lowered his hand. He took 2 deep breaths, and then said, in a voice distorted by suppressed rage,
"Very well, very well. Cleared of all charges."
Amelia was sadly murdered in July 1996. Presumably by Lord Voldemort himself, she was also a very skilled witch. The evidence left at the crime scene suggests that it took a lot of effort to kill her. It is also believed she may have been a target, as she was a likely replacement for being the new Minister for Magic since Fudge had resigned. As Minister, she would have been almost impossible to control or manipulate. She was also known to be one of the most powerful witches of her time, which would have definitely made Voldemort see her as a threat. Her death was also reported in the Muggle newspaper, which baffled the Muggle police force as the room was locked from the inside. Cornelius Fudge notified the Prime Minister of the true cause of her death.